Hey everybody, welcome to Real Estate Sales Secrets. You know, the title of today's interview is Real Estate Skills, Critical Skills Every Real Estate Agent Needs to Have and Develop. And my name's Robert Tucker. Today we are talking with real estate sales expert Jason Secor about the critical skills that every real estate agent needs to be successful in real estate and get the best results. Welcome, Jason Secor.
Well, excited to be here. Thanks, Rob, for the invite.
You got it. Absolutely. Hey, Jason and I go back a long ways, and I know that he is a hands-on expert on the subject of real estate sales. He's graciously consented, after I twisted his arm, to interview and share the skills that you guys need to develop the right skills in how to succeed without going broke. Jason, thanks again for joining us on the live interview, and let's jump in. So first set of questions is about you, your background, the experience that you've had in real estate, because I want our audience to understand who you are, how you developed those skills, and how you can relate to where they are right now. So tell us a little bit about yourself in terms of your background, your education, and your experience in real estate. How'd you get started? When did you get started?
Yeah, absolutely. So my background is I actually grew up in a family that had an entrepreneur background, and I tell people my father was a serial entrepreneur. He just absolutely loved business, loved different opportunities. And so I kind of wanted to go the other way from that and really wanted to pursue more of a ministry background, more through the local church and doing that, and had my eyes set on that, going through college, doing that, got into that world and just realized that there was a massive opportunity to impact people in the marketplace and in the workplace, and got out of the full-time ministry position I was in my senior year in college and my first year out. By that time I was married, and my wife and I opened a women's fitness franchise at the time, and opened one. It went really well. Made the grandiose mistake of very quickly opening a second one, and then a little event happened, 9/11, and the week before our grand opening, that store just absolutely bombed, and at that point I was doing investing, and we were full-time real estate investing as well. That led me into the mortgage industry, which and then we ended up selling one of the franchises, shutting the other down, and kind of hit the rock bottom business point that led us actually to bankruptcy through that business. Then so at that, and then I was in the mortgage business, and I was calling on real estate agents, and I went into that opportunity knowing that I wanted that relationship to be different with the realtor, because we'd sent about 60 to 70 loans to one particular mortgage company, and we didn't get a thank you. We didn't get that. We always had to call for information. We were never updated. We were bothering them, and rates had gotten really, really low after all, in that season. And so we were going to open a mortgage company that did things differently. And I learned very quickly in that mortgage thing that I needed to find a way to add value to my realtor partners. And so I got into lead generation. And so I called through neighborhoods, I called for sell by owners, and I teed up opportunities for real estate agents.
Oh, okay.
And so I was calling them with either pre-approved buyers or people that were thinking about selling.
Yeah.
And I was blown away in that I did a test, and I called 25 of what I would say were productive realtors, but they weren't the top of the line. So I figured that they would have time to take my call. But I also didn't want to go to realtors that weren't producing, because they wouldn't have. And of the 25, only of the 25, 0 of them answered the phone, and 1 of them returned my call.
Yep.
With people that were pre-approved, ready to buy homes. And And so at the time, the partner in with the mortgage company with us had his broker's license. And I said, there's an opportunity. And so we opened a real estate company, and I basically became kind of the loan officer / ISA for both divisions. And about 2.5 years into that, which was going into 2007, I said, you know what, this mortgage business is kind of changing. I kind of like the real estate better. And so in 2007, I jumped full time into real estate. So that's kind of how I ended up there.
Gotcha. Interesting. So you were actually making the phone calls, then or at least attempting to hand them off to realtors in your area.
Correct.
And you made calls to realtors and they didn't call back?
Yes. Very shocking.
Interesting. Do you think that's changed any nowadays?
I think it's probably worse nowadays than it was before.
I was hoping you'd say that, because that's the same thing that I've felt. I always say that, and I told my mom this when I got started in real estate. I told her, I said, Mom, I'm getting into real estate because I don't think there's any competition in real estate. And she just chuckled. And you're right. I think it's gotten worse. So let me, our theme for this really is, if you suddenly lost everything, you woke up one morning and your office was burnt down, all your records, your computers were melted, you had no signs, you had nothing, and all of your team was gone, and you were starting back from square one. And you have your family, and you've got your wife, and you've got 5 kids, right?
Yep.
Is it 5 or it's 5?
It's 5.
Yeah, that's right. 5. That's right. And a couple of teenagers that are boys that eat you out of house and home. What would you do to get it back? So when we're talking about those things, let me ask you, were you, to get to where you are now, and we're going to get into that specifically in a second, but were you an overnight success, or did you actually have to work for this?
Absolutely had to work. Far from an overnight success.
All right, good. So you're the right person for us to talk to on that. So let's get into this part. What do you think the first skill that every real estate agent needs when it comes to sales?
I think the first skill is being an active listener. I call it kind of a consultative approach versus a sales approach. I believe that we all want to buy, but none of us want to be sold. And I think the number one skill is the ability to actively listen to what someone is telling you without a pre-programmed agenda. And that's where I see most people fail, is we learn all these scripts and all these things and all that, and they do have their place. However, we can get robotic in the way we deliver those based on what our objective is versus me actually caring, what does Rob really need, want to accomplish, and how do I serve his needs versus look for how he can serve my needs through a commission check.
Yeah. Well, so how does an agent develop this skill?
I think the way you develop it is I do think there's a training element. I think you do role play and dialogue on a daily basis. I mean, I believe it's done through doing. I mean, I think it's developed through doing.
Yep.
So I think what we do in practice on our team is we actually do role plays and dialogues daily, working on developing that skill and that ability, because you can do all the training on it, and you should. However, unless you practice it, it's a learned reaction. It's very, some people have it naturally. Most of us have to develop it. I had to develop it, and through practice and repetition. And one of the things I think we lose sight of, and my team's kind of laughing at me because I say this, it seems like on a daily basis, is when do most of us start talking? Around 2 years old, around 1.5, 2, 1 to 2. 1, we start babbling, saying word, mama, dada. 1.5, we start babbling. 2, we 2 to 3, we start really putting together sentences. We've been practicing this whole communication thing since 2 to 3 years old.
Yeah.
And then we get into this industry, and then all of a sudden we turn into robots that just have to go, how many bedrooms, how many baths, what price range, are you pre-approved, are you?
Yeah.
Versus actually having a conversation and pulling those things out. So I think one thing to do to develop it is treat every person like you're just having a cup of coffee with them at Starbucks, just inquiring because you want to get to know them.
Yeah. Well, you're talking about the single largest financial transaction that most people have in their lives.
Yep.
And that's one of the things that I think that we're missing right now, because we've been inundated with lead generation companies. And let me ask you this: do you think all those lead generation companies, and you've tried a couple of them, I think, do you think they're good at building that relationship and developing that skill of listening?
No.
So that wasn't a trick question, right?
No, it's not a trick question. I think the easiest people in the world to sell things are realtors.
Yep.
Because we live in a world that is always looking for the silver bullet and the overnight success. I mean, how many different diet programs are there for people that want to lose weight? How many millions of dollars are spent in that industry on an overnight, on just, I'm gonna go from being 50, 60 pounds overweight to fit in 30 days by taking a pill, or and in real estate, I think that's why there are all these lead generation companies, because they figured out, as realtors, we want to shortcut our way to success to the detriments of our checkbook, our families, our businesses, and we'll give them whatever amount of money they want.
Yeah. So if you had woken up today and you didn't have any of that stuff, would you go back and sign up for a lead generation company today?
Today,
you didn't have any money in anything?
If I didn't have any money, no, absolutely not. I would do a couple key things, and then I would look and find the one that I thought would serve me in the best manner, if at all, and start there. I mean, we're using a couple that really do a solid job with what they're doing for us business-wise. However, I wouldn't start with them today. I would start doing a few other key things.
What would
you want me to share those?
Yeah, what would you do? Absolutely.
My number one thing would be, I would 100% commit to building some listings with expireds and for sale by owners.
Okay.
And so if I didn't have the money to find a service to provide the numbers, or my MLS didn't provide the numbers, I would go out and visit them and knock on the door and introduce myself when I thought they would be home, and build that relationship. That takes zero money. It takes just time and effort.
Yep.
And figuring out what I was going to say to them. So that would be my number one thing.
Yeah.
Now, if I could access the phone numbers, I would also call them. I would be first to call. I would call consistently to get in touch with them and go in and present my value to them with my presentation.
Yeah.
And so that would actually, I guess, be number one, is expireds and for sale by owners, because they've already raised their hand telling you they want to sell. Expireds would be my number one, because they've already said they want to sell, and they've already agreed to pay some amount of commission.
Yeah.
So they've already seen the value in someone handling that for them. And then for sale by owners would be my 1B, because they've already raised their hand and told you they want to sell as well.
Do you use a consultative approach with those guys as well?
Absolutely.
How do you do that? What's the icebreaker that you use?
I mean, my icebreaker, I mean, when we're calling expireds or for sale by owners, my initial lead in is, hey, Rob, Jason Secor with Keller Williams Realty. local realtor in the area, noticed your house was on the market and just wanted to find out what's got you looking to sell your home. And I want to find out, why in the world do they have their house on the market?
Yeah.
Is it to move across town? Is it to get closer to grandkids? Do they get transferred? Because if I can learn that, I can figure out the need on how I can help them. And I think too many people are in, and honestly, we've got some that it's not in their best interest to list with us, and we consult them and help them. And several of those people have actually written us reviews.
Nice, very nice, very nice, cool. All right, so let's go back to your thing. Are there any, once you get going a little bit and you've got this skill, this first skill, this consultative approach, what's the second skill that you need to have?
The second skill, I believe, is I believe it's a skill, and you and I have had this conversation before. It's kind of a skill / a characteristic. And my 2 and my 3, actually, I've got kind of 3 that are key to me. They could be reversed, and this is why I think this is more important than the third one we'll share in a little bit, is you've got to have consistency, grit, work ethic. And I don't know how you lump all that in. I kind of put all those together because you got to be willing to get up and do what needs to be done on a daily basis. You and I both know in this real estate industry, really in sales in general, the number one reason people fail out of sales is not lack of ability, it's lack of the willingness to consistently do on a daily basis what they need to do. The reason that over 60 some odd % of America is overweight is because they lack the consistency and work ethic and grit to do on a daily basis what it takes to be healthy. And in sales, the reason a lot of people get out of sales or are broken sales or mediocre in sales or whatever is they lack the skill to consistently get themselves up on a daily basis, have the grit and determination combined with the work ethic to do on a daily basis what needs to be done to accomplish serving the people they need to serve and taking care of themselves and their families.
So on that, give me an idea. What does your day look like? What would it look like if you're starting out? And tell me about that piece. What's your day look like?
So if I was starting out today, I would, and from a business standpoint, and what I would do in my daily business routine is I would probably be finding one or several people that I could practice my scripts, dialogues, and presentations from 7:30 to 8 a.m.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
So that at 8 a.m. I could be on the phone calling expireds from that day and beating people to the punch. And I would block off a day that was my for sale by owner day that I was calling the for sale by owners. I may call them on a daily basis, and then I'm going to check in with them every week on the same day and just keep in touch, because for sale by owners, it's just a matter of the time. We know that over 80% of them are going to list with a realtor at some point in that 8 to 12 week span. So I'm going to start with them. Then I'm going to go through and I'm going to call my sphere of influence, the people that already know me, like me, and trust me. And I'm going to make those calls somewhere in that slot. And I'm going to roll from that after I do that to any of my follow-up calls from the expireds I need to touch back base with. I'll probably do all of that between about 8 and 11.
Okay.
And then I'm going to do open houses as frequently as it takes till I have so much business that I can't do open houses at least 3 to 5 times a week. And I'm not going to do open houses like everybody else. I'm going to go out and I'm going to put 50, 60, 70 signs out, driving traffic, and I'm going to knock on the doors and tell people that I'm holding the house open. And if I have access to get phone numbers through a service or whatever, I'm going to circle prospect 100 to 250 of those houses in the neighborhood as well. I want to knock on at least 50 to 100 doors.
Nice.
And add people to my database through that. And that's going to be my day until I have so many listing appointments and so many buyer appointments that my afternoons become taken up with those activities. And when I get to that point, my 8 to 11 is never, my 8 to 11:30 is never going to change. It's going to be expired, sphere of influence, follow-up calls, for sale by owner calls, anything I need to do in that. And then when I'm busy, then I'm going to go, I may do 2 to 4 open houses a month instead of 2 to 4 open houses a week, because I will still need to keep that flow of lead generation.
Gotcha. So you've got dedicated lead generation time on a daily basis. Then
Absolutely.
You're going out and you're walking neighborhoods, you're doing open houses. So, you talk a little bit, you said that's a big number of signs.
Yeah, it is.
You find that drives a little bit of traffic?
It drives a lot of traffic.
Signs better than putting ads out?
Driver of traffic. What was that?
Better than putting ads out in places?
Oh, way better than putting ads out.
Yep. So then you said something else too. You said from the open houses you get listings.
Correct.
How do you do that?
A couple ways. The reason we're knocking on doors in the neighborhood and the reason we're calling through the neighborhood is studies show that when a house goes on the market in the neighborhood, 5 to 7 homes around it are also going to go on the market in the next, can't remember if it's the study say 6 or 12 months.
Mm-hmm.
You may know that better than I. And so you've got neighbors that if we do a good job and we model the systems we do, they're going to list and they're going to think of us if we do it the right way. And so part of my script and knocking on doors is, hey, we're going to do a 30-minute neighbors only open house for you to come in and kind of check out the competition, so to speak. And we know you've been curious what it looks like. So just come by and check it out. You're not going to have all the other buyers doing that. And that gives me a chance to build a relationship with them, gives them a chance to compare and do that. That's one way. The other way we also know is that 30 to 50% of people that are looking to buy are also going to have homes to sell. So a lot of the people that walk through our open houses also are sellers of houses. So we pick those up as well. And and then in the overall marketing, we're going to also put the house on social media and different things. So we're also gently letting our sphere of influence know we're in real estate. So I could pick up buyers or sellers through my sphere doing that.
Gotcha. Nice. That's awesome. So what's the third skill that every realtor needs?
The ability to negotiate and create value.
Oh, value. Why would we want to do that? That seems like one of the big challenges nowadays, because everybody's, they're dropping their commissions and all kinds of things like that. And
yep.
Why?
This is this is probably a hot button passion topic for me, Rob.
Yeah.
I feel that through technology, we've lost our way in the real estate industry. And I think we bought a bill of goods that we could take the easy way out, and our value was in that we were the gatekeeper of the information.
Yep. And
that before the MLS and all this data sharing and all this, there were those real estate books, and and I protected the information, and the only way you could get it, Rob, as a consumer was to go through me.
Yep.
And in the course of the last, I guess, 15, 20 years, we've evolved into this data's everywhere, data's out there, Zillow's pulling information, Trulia, Realtor.com, and really the consumer has access to almost all of the same information from that perspective that we as the real estate community have access to.
Yeah.
And so if your value's in protecting the data, you're right. You need to drop your commission because you have nothing else to offer, and they got 95% of that, so you provide very little value. And I think that's where that's the mindset a lot of the industry is stuck in. And our value is in that consultative, active listening approach of identifying what's important to you and how do we make it happen? Because people don't buy bedrooms, baths, and garages. They buy experiences and lifestyles for their families and the memories and the experiences that creates. And so we've got to be able to negotiate a deal that is best for, in your case, Rob and Janie and Reese and Mary. Like that's and that deal may mean you need to pay full price, and we may not be able to pay closing costs because we're in a competitive situation. Or that deal may be we can get you something 20% below market value. And we've got to get back to focusing on the main thing, which is what does that client want, need, and how do I help them accomplish that and create the value that way, versus being these gatekeepers of information. Because none of us as agents have the money to compete with Zillow.
Yeah.
It's just a fact.
Yeah.
And if information is our main commodity, we become a commodity. And if we consult, negotiate, and do it consistently, we can provide the value, and we can be the Disney World of real estate, or the Apple or Google of real estate, not the antiquated dinosaur that gets put out of business that so many of us get stuck in that rut.
Yeah, absolutely. So you told me a story the other day. We were talking about some different things, and I'll ask you this: do you, on the buyer side, when you're working with a buyer, do you take under 3%, or do you take under you have your level that you stay with?
We have our we have our commission that we stay at, which is right around the numbers you mentioned.
Yep.
And in the cases where we don't, it's because we're not going to allow our commission to get in the way of the client achieving their goal.
Yep.
However, with the approach that we take and the way we present our value, we're able to collect what we work for about 98 to 99% of the time, and the clients are very, very willing to agree and pay that gladly and still refer us business. Including
when the listing agent has a much lower percentage that they're paying a buyer's agent.
Absolutely. I think I feel the biggest travesty that goes on in the real estate industry today is telling your buyer that working with you is free.
Yeah.
I think it's an absolute lie. I think there's, you and I are old enough to remember before every plan had unlimited cell phone minutes.
Yes. Oh yeah.
And that we actually paid for free nights and weekends.
Yes, that's right.
And so, Rob, you remember that? Was there anything free about free nights and weekends?
Yeah,
or did you pay a premium for it every month to AT&T, right, Verizon, Sprint, whoever it was?
Yeah.
And so the buyer is paying that fee wrapped up in the price of the house.
Right.
And so we don't need to tell them it's free, because it's not free. It's wrapped up in it, number one. Number two, we provide no value if that's the case.
Yeah.
And so I want them to know, this is what I work for. This is what I'm doing. This is how we're going to go about it. And so we really go through that and educate our buyers. The other thing I'm going to say, and this is probably another podcast down the road, I think everybody needs to adopt this practice, not because I'm some smart guy, but because I believe within the next 5 years, you're going to have to get your buyers to pay your commission anyway. And it may not be through a multiple listing service that has a cooperating commission through the seller. And so we all need to work on improve the skill of communicating our values so that we can collect our fee regardless of what a seller and a listing agent decide to offer us.
Yeah. Well, and that goes to all three of the things that we've talked about for these critical skills. You know, it is all about being able to find your value, to express that value, show that value, prove that value, and make sure that who we're helping understands that. You know, it's the same thing I tell people too. It's like finding a doctor that's going to do brain surgery on you. Are you just going to go to Google and click on one of them and see which one of them's there? Or are you actually going to go in and chat with them and find out who's the one that you trust to put a knife in your head that you know is going to provide you with the relief to the problem that you've got? And that's where we are. We've got to find, if we're not listening, you know, you're not listening to people, you know this, we lose being able to solve their problems, and we lose being able to provide a solution that's going to let them reach their goals and live the life they want to, and provide those dreams for their family and their kids and everybody else. And you're spot on. So, you know, at this point, is there any other major skill, anything else you think that a real estate agent needs to work on? I know that's an open-ended question.
Yeah, it's a very open-ended question. I mean, I think that there's, you know, your presentation skills, the way you present, the way you communicate, understanding people. I mean, there's all those things that go into it that you can always be improving and getting better on. And I think all those are things you need to get better on. And yet I still believe if you can get really, really good at the three things that we talked about,
yep,
you can be wildly successful, and you'll be able to work on those things, and they're going to improve on their own. I mean, you know, there's lead generation, there's talking to people on the phone, and a lot of those things fall into all those areas of what we've talked about. So yes, there are probably more. However, I think if you start with those three, you can be wildly successful.
Cool. So you just said something a second ago. So do you have a specific presentation for buyers, sellers, and all of the subgroups in there?
Absolutely.
And you do the same thing every single time?
Every single time.
Huh. Okay.
It's a system.
A system for each one.
A system for each
right.
one.
So you're not pulling it out of your butt every time that you go and you speak with somebody?
No, absolutely not. Absolutely not.
Huh. Imagine that.
No, it's amazing, isn't it?
You know, it is. So let me ask you one more question, and then we're gonna wrap this part up. But what's the perfect mindset for an agent that they could or should have to really be successful in this business?
I'm gonna I'm going to answer that question 100%. Can I go back to what you just were saying about
Yeah.
the presentations?
Yes, absolutely.
One of the things, because I'd kick myself if I didn't share this. One of the things I think we have to understand in this industry is that, a professional athlete, or let's even talk about, your daughter who is a really, really skilled in shooting. And I don't know what's a great marksmanship. I don't know the exact, but Mary has had to put an insane amount of time, commitment in developing that skill.
Yeah.
To become one of the best in the world. Yeah. And so what are we as real estate agents doing to develop those skills, that buyer presentation, that listing presentation, to be the best in the world? Or are we just going in and we're like, we practiced it a few times, I got my cheat sheet, I can do that, I can roll with it, and then we're surprised when the outcome doesn't match what we wanted? And so a professional athlete, a professional basketball player is not wondering how they're going to shoot a free throw with 30 seconds left in the game.
Yeah.
They've done it thousands of times. Tiger Woods, Phil Mickelson, any of the elite golfers are not going, what's my swing on my drive? And so you've got to develop that skill. And I don't know who's credited with the saying, but I always come back to amateurs practice until they get it wrong, amateurs practice until they get it right. Professionals practice until they can't get it wrong.
That's great.
And so are we doing that on our presentations and dialing them in at that level to get the success we desire and serve the client at the highest level? And honestly, Rob, it's sad. It's a testimony to you and your daughter that your daughter puts in that much effort in what she's doing, and we as the real estate community, with such a massive opportunity to serve people and earn massive incomes and experiences, put so little time into developing our craft as Mary has in perfecting hers.
Yeah, and it is interesting. She is the epitome of focus when it comes to that, because she has those long-term goals. And for those that don't know, she is a U.S. national team member, favored to make the Olympic team, all that kind of stuff. But watching what she does and how she's gotten there is a great study in building that, because she competes, maybe a couple times a month potentially, but she practices 6 to 7 hours a day, and she does schoolwork in addition to that as well. So, can you imagine the real estate world, or a real estate agent that practiced presentations, phone scripts, things like that for 6 or 7 hours a day, and then just actually, spent an hour a day once they did that, putting it into effect and making the phone calls? How much, I mean, it would be, you hear about those things with Michael Jordan taking 1,000 free throws a day until I remember in the finals when he was shooting in the finals and he had the free throws at the end of the game, and he closed his eyes and shot the free throws in the finals. It's with his eyes closed. That's what we don't do. You're spot on. So, I would say that kind of goes into that mindset of being willing to do that as well. So
I think it's that, and I think you hit it in that, or we hear that it's that focus.
Yeah.
It's that focus and commitment to do what I need to do on a daily basis to reach the commitments and the things that are important to me through serving other people,
Yes.
Our clients,
Yes.
To accomplish their goals, and then by default I will achieve mine. Yeah. And I think that's the focus. And so what I would challenge anybody that listens to this is, figure out what you're committed, like in the next 90 days, if I accomplish this, it would have been a successful 90 days. It could be put the money in the bank to take the kids to Disney. It could be to pay off debt. It could be whatever. Just find that 90-day thing and then ask yourself the question, okay, to do that, how committed am I to do this? Am I committed to doing as many open houses as it takes, knocking on as many doors as it takes, knocking on, calling as many people, any of that thing, and then go out and do it, and be obsessed with doing the activities to get the result. Don't be interested in getting your result. Be 100% committed. We did a sales meeting with our team, Rob, on today's Friday. It was on Wednesday. And one of the questions I asked them is, we had set some fourth quarter goals on, or fourth quarter commitments on what we were going to do. And one of the things I asked them was the number you wrote up on the board in front of your peers, was that a want or was that a need? Because we all want these things, and we all say we want to be successful real estate agents. We all say we want to earn a certain amount of money. We all want to be skinny and fit. We all want all this stuff. And then, but do we need it? Because you're going to commit and do the activities on the things you need in life. Yeah. And so you've got to change those wants to needs and then have the commitment level that matches it. So that's the mindset I think we all need to have to be successful in real estate sales.
Cool. Well, dude, outstanding. Some solid gold in here. So I am definitely appreciative. I know others are as well. And thank you for the interview. So Jason Secor, thank you again. Thank you to everybody in the audience for joining us today, and just outstanding stuff. And thank you for joining us on Real Estate Sales Secrets.